Hey guys, Jim Collector here. Thanks for stopping by to check out another video. Today is the first of a new series. I'm going to be doing a 3 poses with series where I'm going to be going through different figures in my collection and attempting 3 different poses with that figure. So today I'm going to tackle the Green Goblin from Hot Toys as seen in No Way Home. So without further ado, let's crack on and see what I can pull off with this guy. Alright guys, so here's our first pose. So this is what I'm going to call the glider pose for now. And this is, I've pushed him quite far. I've been quite brave with this pose, I think. And this is the best flying pose that I've managed to get out of him so far. So you can see he's kind of leaning forwards. He's got quite a sharp bend to his right ankle as well. And quite excessive bends to both of his arms. But if you really want a dynamic pose with your Green Goblin from No Way Home, then this is the best way that I've found to do it without having to mod the body. So I want to make it clear, all these poses, I want them to be achievable without having to do any sort of mods. So if you're your basic, typical kind of collector like myself, who doesn't really know how to mod nor have much of that time, then this is a good option for you. So let's have a look at how he looks in different kind of various positions. So you can see from this pose here how he's kind of leaning to the side, which I do quite like. It gives it a really dynamic feel. It is on the middle length or the shorter length of the stands as well. So I do want to get a shorter stand for this at the end, but for now, you know, this will do. And he's got a nice dynamic side to him, which I quite like. I've done a slight kind of movement to the actual glider itself, which has helped to kind of get him and keep him in this pose. As you can see, he does seem to kind of bob around a little bit. Now, I've kept him in this pose for a little bit, and I haven't seen any damage so far. Potentially a little bit of this might be coming up. I can't quite tell. We will see. And this seems to be kind of folded a little bit in his elbow right up here as well. But I haven't really seen anything worrying about that yet. So here we go. This is his dynamic pose. Easily done. Again, we're using the mobility on the foot straps here and just a bit of bends in the knees. Now I've had to work the torso and crunch that in slightly. And I've had to kind of really bend this joint up as well. So if you're one of those people who wants to be a bit more cautious, this probably isn't the best pose for you, but it's a pose I quite enjoy and probably how I'm going to display him long term. And we'll see how that does in terms of damage. Anyway, let's check out the next pose. So next one, we're going to do something a little bit easier. All right then, so here we have pose number 2. And now this is a bit more of a relaxed pose, something that will put less stress on the suit if that's something you're a little bit worried about, but also kind of really puts on a bit of the character of Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin as well, which I really like. So this pose is inspired by the end of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. It's during the final fight when Spider-Man's pretty beaten up and Green Goblin decides to kind of have a bit of a heart-to-heart chat about with him. So that's what this is inspired by. So if you remember the film, you'll know what I mean, but if not, do check out photos. But I quite like this this one. It's got a good display for the glider. I like how the glider is winging out either side of him, which kind of frames him quite nicely. And the cheeky kind of relaxed pose, like I've said, really embodies the character well. Now, in terms of actually posing this, again, it doesn't put much stress on the joint. The only area that you might want to be careful of is in the armpit here, just to make sure that you're not stressing those joints too much. There is a slight bend in both elbows, but nothing I'd worry about. And this leg, if that's something that concerns you, because there's a little bit of bunching here, you can just drop that leg a little bit lower and it will be perfectly fine. But this is quite a nice pose, and I am quite happy with this one. Zoom in on him a little bit. I think he looks really good, and it can be quite a menacing little pose this. So yeah, this is pose number 2. Again, a bit more friendly on the suit. The last pose I've had a look and it did put a little bit of crease marks into the suit, so we'll have to see if over time those will come out. But yeah, so far so good. So now we're going to go on to pose number 3. Alright, and here we are with an unhelmeted pose. Now, I did consider whether to even bother including a helmeted pose, and the only reason for that is because I'm just not a massive fan of the head sculpt. It's not a bad head sculpt, just for me it just doesn't quite work in the way that I wanted it to. I haven't quite got an explanation of what I would want it to work like, but yeah, for me, it's just not a done deal. But if you did want to use a head sculpt, if you did like it, he does, to be fair, have a nice maniacal grin on his face, which is nice to see. If you did like it, this is a good way to pose him, because I feel like he never really, in this version of the suit, in either the Sam Raimi film or No Way Home, he never really flies on the glider without his helmet, so that just felt weird to me. But here he's got his helmet, he's holding it into the side, and you can see the Goblin's taken over Norman Osborn, and he's got that maniacal grin. Again, this is kind of a standing straight up and down pose. Nothing scary about this at all. You don't need to worry about the suit. The suit will be fine because it puts little to no stress in it. The only areas potentially is you could lower the arm. But yeah, this is pretty much a good pose I could imagine people going with. The eyes I have manipulated, I've tilted his head down slightly, so he's kind of looking for his brow, which I like. Gives him a bit more of a menacing look. So yeah, all in all, this is a nice enough pose. I was going to leave it at just 3 poses, but I think I'm going to do an extra one. What I'm going to do in the last pose is I really want to try and push him as far as I can and try and replicate a movie style pose. And we'll see how that kind of goes in a second. But for guys, if you did want to display your Green Goblin, this is an absolutely fantastic pose that you can use. And it looks, for me, I think it looks quite natural. Now, these are just poses I would suggest. I'm not a master poser. Some people do absolutely beautiful poses, but I just wanted to do a few videos of, if you're new to the series or new to collecting Hot Toys, for example, just some poses that you can do and some kind of limits you can push it to, so you feel a bit more comfortable when you're posing your own figures. And of course, you know, it just gives you some ideas. So right, let's try our final pose and see how that goes. All right then, guys, so here is our very last pose. And now this one was bloody difficult to get, I'm not gonna lie. So I was trying to recapture some movie imagery, which I'll flash up on the screen now. I wanted to see if I could recreate that scene there where he's kind of grabbing his glider and kind of gliding along with a bomb in his hand, kind of looking ahead. Now, this probably took me 20 to 30 minutes to get into this pose. It looks good. I'm not gonna lie, I actually quite like how he looks here. At least from the front. From the side, I'll show you in a minute, he's quite precariously balanced. But from the side, he looks a bit weird. From the front though, he looks pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. He is on his glider, he's balanced quite well. He's got a good grip on the glider as well, which I quite like. And then it looks like, because of the angle that the glider is flying around, this reminds me of one of the Sam Raimi scenes, especially the it's like the parade scene where he's out, am I? And then he he chucks the bomb. It just kind of reminds me of that a little bit. So yeah, I think this is not a pose I would recommend just anyone try. Now, I've done this without any sort of mods to the body, which means I put a lot of strain into the suit. So as soon as I'm done recording this, I'm going to take him straight out of this pose. But yeah, so you can kind of see how I've got his right leg bent such as this, and then his other one's a little bit straighter, jutting out to the side. I've had to kind of open up the legs and then bend them like so to kind of achieve this, this position. And then a lot of movement with the ankles as well. Now I'm going to try and turn this without him falling, and you'll be able to see what I kind of mean. Alright, so here you can kind of see the position he looks like from the side. So from the side, it doesn't look like a very natural position at all. You can kind of see his knees are all jutted out in a really weird angle. His ankle joint is exposed. In fact, that joint's barely even in the socket. So it's quite a difficult pose to do, but one that I'm glad I at least tried to put in. So the actual limitations I had wasn't so much the suit itself. In fact, the suit you can pretty much get into a good position. The limitations with this that I found were actually the placements of the foot stirrups. In fact, you can see that one's still open. If you could slide them out, so if they slid up and down the wing, that would make these poses a lot easier because he's got a lot of mobility in the ankles. So the biggest limitation I found in getting him into a good flying pose on this glider is the foot stirrups. And I might show you what I mean in a minute. We'll depend. We'll see how the video kind of goes along. But that's what makes posing him so difficult. Now you can see kind of the angle I've got him at here. The glider's hanging up a lot and he's going to fall. Oh, I saved it. So, like I said, it's a balancing act. If he tips a little bit, because the base isn't weighted that much, which is kind of annoying. I think in the future, if they're going to do something like this, the base needs to be weighted. I know they do have the second flight pole to kind of hold him on as well, but I don't like how that looks. It looks kind of nasty. But let's see if I can slide him around without him falling again. So again, there you can see kind of how the joints on the legs look at the moment. Let's see if I can zoom in. So you can see how precariously kind of placed he is. Bit of goblin butt up there as well. It was peachy. So yeah, so it's not an easy position to pull off at all. I'll tell you what, I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to take him out of this pose now, and I'll show you what I mean in terms of why he could pose quite well in this kind of a pose off the glider, but the glider actually is one of the things that limits it. Of course, not the only thing. You are still putting a lot of stress on the suit either way, and it's not a pose you'd want to leave in long term, but yeah, I think I'll show you that quickly. All right, guys, so here you can see that I've got him in a pretty dynamic pose, I would say. Again, there are restrictions to the suit, so obviously if this was a looser suit, it might not look as good, but you would probably get a bit more movement. But you can see I've got him crouched low. He's able to reach the floor. So if we wanted to imitate that glider pose where he's holding onto the glider while flying along on it, this is kind of the position you'd want. Now, the problem is, you can see how far his feet are apart. If I get the glider up, bosh. So you can kind of see here, they're in fixed positions. Yeah, sure, they tilt up and down and side to side, but that is pretty much all they do. Now, if I try to line him up like so, you can see his feet won't ever match up exactly with the foot peg. So you'd almost need them to be a lot wider like so, which is a bit of a shame. I mean, of course, it is partly down to the limitations of the suit itself. But also, I suppose you can put it down to slight limitations on the glider. Now, guys, I think that's it for these poses. I'm going to quickly get this guy into a normal pose so its suit can sort itself out again. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Guys, if you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I am going to be doing a lot more of these posing videos going forwards, just as I wait for a few more orders to come in. Can't wait for the Kenobi Vader. So yeah, so keep your eyes out for a few more posing videos, and I hope to see you again in another video. Peace out.